Hey guys, I want to just share with you a dream that I had December 14th, 2018. And the reason I want to share this now is because I feel like I've been starting to put some pieces together just with some things that I've been coming across with just having dreams over the years and kind of just seeing various connection points. And one question that seems to be roaming the internet is, when is Jesus going to return? There were a whole bunch of people who were predicting Jesus' return last month, and specifically connected with the holiday of Pentecost. I believe that they probably are on the right track in terms of the Pentecost timing, but this dream that I want to share with you actually gives some context that shows that although the time is short and things are very imminent, that there's actually some work that we need to do before the sort of end of the age sort of a scenario. And the reason I want to share this is because I feel like I want to communicate to you the sense of urgency that I feel like is constantly being communicated to me in my own dreams, but also to not be discouraged, because even though people are receiving many dreams about Jesus returning, I believe that it is coming. There's some large event, major transition between one age to another age, and that it's coming and it's very fast, and who knows, maybe it's even overdue. but anyway, this dream hopefully will help to orient some things, and I've had other dreams that also can serve to inform this sort of a thing too. But for now, I'm just going to share this one. Okay, December 14th, 2018. Here's what I wrote. I'm just going to read my notes, and then I'll paraphrase in certain sections. Okay, here we go. So I had a series of dreams in which I was dreaming and then told someone that this was a dream, and then I woke up, and then I repeated the cycle again before actually waking up. Okay, so in this dream, I'm constantly dreaming and then waking up in my dream, and then dreaming again and then waking up in my dream. So that's what I mean by that. Okay, so at the very start of this dream, I remember it was a dark scene, kind of a nighttime, maybe city scene. There was some sort of a evil plot at hand. I didn't really know exactly what it was, but off in the distance, I have this picture memory of off to the right, far away on the horizon, there was some sort of a large, like, invading force. It felt like just this huge monstrous force, like just something that was invading in the background, almost like the sort of on the horizon, you can see some sort of impending doom, and it hasn't yet reached you, but it's kind of terrifying because it's within sight. So something was in the distance, and my husband and I just instinctively began gathering up superheroes to mount a defense against whatever was invading. So the reason we were gathering superheroes, I guess, apparently, was that we had superpowers, and we actually didn't really, I feel like in the dream, I didn't really even know that I had superpowers before, but like, and we were all just like dressed like in normal clothes, and I guess we were, in a sense, like in disguise, because we just like looked like normal people, but somehow in light of this danger that was on the horizon, we just discovered that we had superpowers. And so then we felt like, oh man, we have to find others. We know that there are others who are actually superheroes like us, and they might not know it. And so it was kind of this interesting feeling that we were actually trying to gather people who looked like ordinary people, like they didn't have a superhero identity or anything. It wasn't like we were calling up Superman or Spider-Man or anything like that. It was like we were going out and seeking, like trying to find, are you this? Are you this? Like, do you have this superpower? And then like, it was almost like they were, in a sense, awakening to their own superpowers themselves. So it was a kind of an interesting sort of a beginning scene there. Now, What was happening was, in the midst of this, while we were sort of gathering up the superheroes, there was something really weird happening with our kids. Now, what was happening was, some other people were watching our kids, and I actually don't really know exactly if the identity of these people is important, but I just had the feeling like they were just normal, maybe like teachers, daycare workers, something like that. Somebody who was we put them in charge to watch our kids. Now, there was something that happened with the food specifically, and I've had other dreams about food relating to spreading some sort of disease or contaminant, so I don't really know why this is a theme. But anyway, so there's some sort of a food that was supposed to be prepared at a certain temperature so that it had a certain chemical reaction inside of it, but because it was like a different temperature, then it had some weird effect. And in the dream, someone said that because the temperature was different, it turned into some sort of a protein that it wasn't supposed to, or something. And so anyway, I don't understand what that is all about, but so it turned out that that along with this sort of weird thing happening with the food, like at the same time, there was some sort of a very mysterious reason that that our kids got very sick. Now, in my mind, in my memory, like I'm connecting that directly to their food consumption. So I don't know if in the dream it was actually not as closely related to that, but I'm pretty sure it was very closely related to something went wrong with the food, and then our kids got very sick, and then it was like so severe that within, just a short amount of time after they started getting sick, they just started dying. Like, so it started with the oldest, and then the next oldest, and then the next one, it was like my husband was like, I hope that she'll make it. And then it was like, I think she was even like crying, and I was trying to comfort her. I was telling my husband, like, don't worry, this is just a dream, this isn't real. And then it was like, my husband was totally in like the dream frame, so it was like he was trying to be comforted, but he just couldn't because he was like in the dream. And then it was like my daughter just then died, and then it was like, then all that was left was our baby, and then and then it was like, and then so somehow in the midst of this, I actually in the dream woke up, and I was assured to find out that what I had said was true. This is just a dream. And so like I confirmed, like, okay, no, all of our kids are fine, but then in the dream again, I fell back asleep, and I went back into the dream. Now this time, there were some friends of ours who had a little baby, and their baby was crying, and I was wondering, oh, is that our baby? But then I realized that no, our baby died. Like, and I was like, no, not again. Like, I'm back in this dream. And so then I was looking toward the corner of the crib, and I saw our baby there, and I was just hopeful that maybe our baby was still alive. And then I saw that, oh, actually he is alive. So the friends of ours who had their baby there as well were saying that if we could go on this mission and find this particular golden rocket of a specific sort, then we might be able to bring all of our kids back to life, because we could go back in time and change the timeline and do these it was like a complicated thing, like a long complicated mission, like for like a video game. Almost like it just felt like, okay, you have to do these very specific things in this very specific order, and there's this very low chance, but you might be able to do it. And then I just objected, and I said, no, we don't need to do that. This is a dream. We don't need to. So in the midst of that conversation, then some other friends of ours came over, and these friends happened to like just playing like board games and stuff like that. And they were carrying some games with them. And so I think that they had come to visit us, like to maybe play games or to hang out or something. But then what happened was, because there was this sort of impending danger in the distance, and everything was very chaotic, and like, children were dying and all these things were happening, then it was like our time was basically cut short, and it was like, okay, we have to leave, we have to escape. And so we were leaving out, like there was this back alley behind the house where we were in, and so we started to go with our friends out this back alley. And while we were doing that, there were just little pieces of things kind of scattered on the ground, and then we were realizing, oh, like those are parts, like pieces of the games that they had brought to play. And so like we were all like trying to gather up the pieces quickly to like put them back in the boxes, and I was like struggling to kind of carry my baby in our car seat, in the sort of tight alleyway area. And I remember that was like this feeling like, oh, okay, like we have to like hurry, we have to go, but it was kind of a little bit difficult. So anyway, all of that was going on, and I don't really know exactly how the dream transitioned, but suddenly the dream transitioned. And this is the last part of the dream where I felt like now I was maybe a third-party observer, and there was a room, and it didn't seem like it was a huge room, but, like maybe smaller than a gymnasium, like it was not huge. It was not huge. There were people kind of gathered, standing all around the edges of the walls. And right in the middle, there was what looked like almost like a big, almost like an arcade game table, like almost like maybe like a pinball machine, but not quite, maybe like a foosball table or something, but it was like really big, and it had almost like if a scientist puts up little barriers and like a little maze for rats to crawl through or something. It kind of had that feeling where it was kind of a large table, like larger than a pool table, and it had all of these little obstacles set up inside this table, and it felt like it was maybe enclosed, or somehow it was there and everyone was there to observe what was happening on this table. So while I was there kind of observing, and I didn't really have a clear feeling of whether I was actually present or whether I was just observing through like, the third party objective narrator eyes. But anyway, I was observing this scene, and what happened was there were some very evil beings that were over in the corner that were kind of in charge of whatever this gathering or this event was. And the reason I knew they were evil was just intuitively, like I didn't have any, there wasn't explicit notification that, oh, like we're evil or something. It was like there was one person who seemed like they were in charge. They seemed just like maybe like a kingly sort of a figure. Not really dressed like a king, but just like someone in a position of authority. And then next to that person, there were kind of several people kind of surrounding him. And then there was someone who looked like, I don't know if you remember in the series Power Rangers, there was this guy named Zordon, where it was in a big tube, like in this base. You could just see his face right in the middle of this big tube. Basically, if you never saw that, basically it's like, just imagine like a huge cylindrical tube that goes from floor to ceiling, maybe filled with like some sort of liquid or something, so that the image looks a little bit, like wavy or distorted, kind of like if you're looking into an aquarium. And then in the middle, there's this huge face, and it feels like whatever this entity was, it felt like the face was maybe a projection. It didn't feel like that was the actual entity, but it was definitely directly connected to that entity, whatever it was. It looked very much like that face looked very much like a human face, just kind of like in the Power Rangers show, but it was just a little bit more grotesque in some way. And I don't really remember exactly how. I'm going off of my notes here. So anyway, so there was this big face inside this tube, and I had the feeling like whatever this kingly leader was over here, this kingly leader was in charge of giving directions to this entity that was in this tube. And I knew that the entity that was in this tube, because it was within this tube, it had immense power. So it was able to do a lot of very spectacular things. But it was also directly being controlled, like by this other leader, this kingly leader that was over here. So anyway, in the midst of that, that was kind of the setup. In the midst of that, there was a little tiny person, like literally just like very small, like about a Barbie doll size maybe. And it seemed like what happened was there was someone who had been fighting in this big battle. Like, so at the very beginning of the dream, my husband and I were gathering superheroes to mount an attack against whatever it was that was in the distance. And I had the feeling that probably by this point, there had already been some sort of engagement with the enemy. And perhaps this person was someone who was already in the battle, like on the front lines, because they were all dressed up in their superhero gear and their armor and their high-tech equipment and all that stuff. And so it felt like this person had been fighting diligently and had been captured somehow. So now this person, I'll just say like this little, it seemed like it was a man, just basically dressed up as a superhero, but like somehow was shrunk down in size and put into this big table that was in the middle that had the obstacle course sort of thing set up on the table. And so the king who was over in the corner, I'll just call him a king, I have no other word to use right now. The king that was over in the corner said, he announced like to the room that this superhero had 12 minutes. The timer was set at 12 minutes. And at the end of 12 minutes that he would die. And so he would be basically the entity that was in that tube would shoot some sort of a energy weapon at him and he would be obliterated. So now, in the midst of all of this maze and obstacle course that the superhero was put into was basically like, it had like death threats all around. Like there were spinning blades and there were things being shot and fired, across across the table, and like there were just like all sorts of deadly things. And so he was like working as hard as he could to like dodge and to like survive and to stay alive and everything. And so there was like this background feeling of like he wanted to be able to survive, but it seemed hopeless. Like, I mean, basically it was just announced that in 12 minutes, like basically some sort of an energy weapon or something was going to be fired across the whole table, and inevitably he would be obliterated. So, and it was like only 12 minutes. Like for some reason it was 12 minutes. So, interesting number symbolically. But anyway, so then while the superhero was in the midst of trying to dodge all of these obstacles that were coming at him, trying to stay alive, even though it seemed futile, he was starting to lose hope. But there was someone who was actually cloaked, but who kind of transported in. And for some reason, I was able to see this person. Now, this person looked, again, like all like masked and in costume, and so it was like hard to see the distinguishing features. Like I didn't really know who this person was. Like I didn't even have any idea if this was a good person or a bad person. I had no idea. I couldn't really tell. All I could see was like the eyes, which were kind of like highlighted in some way, and I had this sense of blue, like maybe like a royal navy blue color, kind of around this entity. It beamed in, and this was after like the countdown timer had been going down and down and down. This being beamed in, and basically put his hand on that little superhero person who was on the table somehow, or reached out his hand toward him, and without the knowledge of anybody else, just transported him out. And then they left. They were then gone. At that very moment, the person who was in charge, the king over in the corner, told the person in the tube to he secretly was communicating to him to fire, even though it was early. So he was going to fire this energy weapon. He was going to fire it even though the timer hadn't yet expired. And so right as this cloaked entity came in and stole this little superhero off this obstacle table, there was the firing of that energy weapon happening almost simultaneously. It was like just like this near miss, like they're transported out and then the energy weapon like just fires across the table. And again, this is early. This is not, it's not after the timer expired or reached zero. It was early, minutes early. So the creature fired the weapon, and in the wake of the energy weapon, there were maggots in its path. So it looked like, from everyone else's perspective, like everyone was gasping, like, like, oh no, like what happened, you know? Because it looked like that little person had turned into maggots. It was very, very horrific. So anyway, everyone was standing and watching. They were horrified. And then the person who was in charge publicly turned to the one that was in that tube, the one that was very powerful, and began to shame and say, "What did you do? You bad," you know, like it was like very shaming and accusing toward the one that he basically had just secretly told to fire early. But it was like now he was like passing blame. What did you do? You broke the rules. You fired early, and so then basically what happened was that person that was in the tube somehow was then destroyed. That energy weapon or whatever was basically redirected. Like the kingly creature that was over in the corner had the weapon directed back at the person who was inside this tube, so that it got destroyed. Whatever that was, it just got destroyed. And so as that happened, then this tube was empty. There was someone already waiting eagerly to like sort of step into that place. And this time it was a woman. It looked kind of like maybe like a queen or something. Maybe like the Queen of Hearts, or like it seemed like almost like maybe like a painted face sort of queen. Like, I don't know. It was kind of a strange sort of a appearance. But anyway, so this different person came in and took the place with this joy and satisfaction, and it was like, oh, like I finally get to be here in this position. And so instantly that person took on the same sort of appearance, where it was like their face was large and magnified inside this tube. So that was the end. That was the end of the dream. So actually, this is a very strange dream for many reasons. I think that some things that I notice. One is that at the very beginning of the dream, there is a gathering of superheroes. Now, I believe that in my own sort of dream language, this is referring to people who are going to be gifted, anointed by the Spirit to be able to do the sorts of signs and wonders that we know that are coming in the days ahead. Some of us have already had tastes of that, as evidenced toward the end, where there was a superhero that was outfitted, that had already been, in the battle, like intensely, and had been captured. So there's people who are in the sort of early stages of being recruited, and then there are people who have been veterans, like they're just like fighting already. So there was some sense at the very beginning of the dream that the danger was on the horizon, but it was imminent. It was approaching, like that. There was this sense of urgency, like I could try to just ignore this, but I actually can't ignore this. This is coming. So from my own perspective inside the dream, it wasn't directly relevant to me. Like I wasn't in the battle right now. And a lot of people who are around me, they also weren't in the battle. So there was the feeling of we were not necessarily even awakened, or there was nothing that motivated us to really even discover that we had superpowers, and you might say that we were called by God to do something significant. We were just sort of just, living our ordinary life, but in the sort of sight of what was coming on the horizon, then we sort of rose to the occasion in a sense, and then we were very surprised to discover what we had actually been equipped already to be able to do. The thing in the middle with all the complication about the kids, I can say that, symbolically, like this might have to do with just the desperate attempt, even though it looks like the battle is on the horizon, that it's almost like there's infiltration that happens before the main battle, and the infiltration comes in before the battle, and that infiltration is in the form of a distraction. So in the form of the distraction, what are you going to do to distract those who are trying to sort of conjure up like okay, we need to go into battle, this is very significant? One way that you can provide a major distraction is to get at the kids, basically. Like if there's things that are things that, and children can be symbolic of things. So like, projects that we're doing or other things that we're carrying or responsible for, that basically there's some sort of an attack on what we're stewarding and managing, or literally our kids, or maybe our spiritual kids, those that we're trying to disciple and mentor, that there's something that's causing death. There's something that's coming in and causing death, and it's distraction. And I kept saying during this section, no, this is just a dream. We don't have to do all of these things. And the section where I was like, we have to like find this special golden rocket, and then maybe we can, go back in time and we can change it, and then our kids don't have to die, and all these things. Guys, like I'm just seeing right now like a parallel between everything that's happening right now in this sort of narrative of our society, like that there's there's pandemics and businesses closing and everything's going horribly wrong, and I have the feeling like that's a direct attack against those who are in this time. Like we're actually called to rise up and enter into the real battle, but that whatever it is that we're thinking that is going on right now, that's actually a distraction. So I feel like the all of this stuff, it's in a sense I kept waking up and realizing, no, like this is just a dream. This isn't even real. This is a dream. And that's not to say that the experience wasn't real, or like that there wasn't something real to it, but that there was some aspect of it that had the illusory nature. It was like there was something that was trying to fog our vision and put a cover over our eyes so that we wouldn't be paying attention to the thing that was the most important, that was actually coming, that we needed to prepare for. And I feel like even the idea of like looking for that golden rocket, like there's some sort of a cure. We're going to be able to get through this. Like there's something that we're going to be able to latch onto that's like, if we do all of these things in the right way, then it might prevent like all these horrible things from happening. I feel like even that in and of itself is, in a sense, maybe a distraction, that arises because of a distraction that will get us caught up in a loop where we're just stuck like doing all these things. And why are we stuck doing all those things? We need to actually be like focused on what the real target is. And so that's kind of like my feeling that I'm getting about this. So anyway, at the very end, it's actually very interesting because you have all the people gathered around outside the room. And you can almost imagine like this is a global stage. Like this is everyone just kind of like watching what's happening. And this isn't everyone watching the battle, because I feel like everyone actually isn't going to see the battle. They're not even going to understand the nature of the battle. But what is going to be visible or in the public eye is what's happening between representatives of the two sides of the battle. So you have the sort of evil kingly creature that is responsible for all these other minions that it has, and one of the minions is very powerful. And there is this sort of showdown between that person and like a representative of, those who are battling against that power. And in the midst of that battle, it looks like there's no hope. Like, how could you possibly win when everything is stacked against you? And it's interesting because right when the rules of the game were actually going to be violated, and there was like the enemy side who already had the upper hand was now cheating to like to basically wipe out the opponent earlier than they said or something. Like right at that moment was when this mysterious person came and just grabbed that superhero and just pulled them out. So it's very interesting because what happened after that was, it wasn't like the story was over. Like everyone was still watching, and it was like they were horrified, and there was like all this stuff, and then someone else, like there was still drama happening after that. But it just makes me wonder, like, oh, like what if that actually is the nature of like we have to first engage in this battle. We have to actually awaken to our calling. There's something significant that we have to do. And in the midst of that, even though it looks like things are very difficult, things are very hard, that there's that point where we're going to be taken out. We're going to be taken out. And then when we're taken out, everyone else is like freaking out and like, what's going on? And it looks like all of these powers are still reigning, and, things are horrible. And, like there's still a plot going on, but that feeling of the imminence that there's about to be, a rapture. There's about to be, Jesus returning, like that feeling of the imminence actually is all combined in a sort of final confrontation. Like the good and the evil have to arise and actually have that conflict where it becomes very prevalent in the public attention. And I think that is sort of like this missing element that we haven't really seen yet in its fullness. I think that there's more coming with respect to that. And I think that there's a lot of us who right now we actually are we have been sort of living ordinary lives, like maybe not even really having sight of what it is that we're supposed to do. Like we're just kind of trying to live day to day. Like we don't even really know what access we have to things, and like we're just trying to figure out, like we might have a sense that there's something happening, but we don't really know what to do with ourselves. And I feel like there's and maybe even some of you watching this video are going to hear what I'm saying, and you're going to feel that, like that inner conviction. Like I knew that I was here for something. I knew that there was something important that I was supposed to do. And I feel like there are people who are now at this time, like waking up to realize, like, oh my goodness, like there's a battle that is like on my doorstep, and I have to be prepared. I have to be ready to put everything else down, and I have to be ready to go into battle. Now, what it looks like to go into battle is not what you should think about, like in terms of like fighting wars with other nations and things like that. Like our battle is not against flesh and blood. It's not against people. It's really a battle in the spiritual realm, and we'll have to talk about more what that battle looks like in the future. But I wanted to encourage you that if you are having dreams, or if you're having a sense that there's something about to happen, there's something, like there's something big happening, or maybe you're kind of terrified because you see like something approaching on the horizon, and you're not really sure what to do about that or what to think about that. I just want to encourage you that if you really seek down inside, you might actually discover that you've been equipped for a time such as this, and that there's something that you are here to do. There's some sort of a very significant purpose, and that there is definitely a sense of urgency, and that as you begin to step into some of those things that you're called to do, I believe that we are corporately going to actually see a lot of very grand success. We're going to see a lot of things happening, and there's going to be a lot of advancement. But at the same time, that enemy is not going away. That battle is actually coming closer. And so I want to maybe just offer or suggest to you that perhaps what's happening is we're all having the sense of urgency because it's the time. It's the time for us to enter into our greatest hour, to take on that superhero identity, and then to really just bring truth, love, goodness, beauty into the world in a very warlike manner. Like, we're not going to compromise. We're not going to allow fear to rule our lives. We're not going to allow the standard interaction between people to be deprecating and mean and shaming and accusing and, like just dehumanizing, demonizing. We're going to instead show a different pattern. We're going to be understanding. We're going to listen. We're going to offer healing and service to people who are hurting and they're wondering what to do, and we're going to have answers. And we might not understand what those answers are, but that's part of I think what we're stepping into is we're starting to see what are those things that the Lord has already provided for us that we can reach out and we can grab, and then we can put on as armor. In a sense, we have to clothe ourselves with a new outfit. We have to put on our costume. We have to get ready, like to go into battle. So I wanted to just share that. Perhaps that will bring a little bit of clarity, because I believe that if you have that sort of a picture in your mind, then we'll see that we're not expecting Jesus to return in the next few days or the next few hours, but it is imminent in the sense of this is very significant what's about to happen in history, and we need to be ready, like at all times. And actually, there's no sitting around and waiting, because we actually have jobs to do, and that it's in the middle of doing our jobs that we're going to be, in a sense, rescued. And that's just kind of the feeling that I'm getting from this dream in particular, but perhaps in combination with other dreams that I've had. So hopefully that brings a little bit of clarity, a little bit of a different perspective that perhaps can maybe put together some of the pieces that some of you guys have been looking for. And hopefully this is encouraging to you that don't worry about things looking like they're going bad, or like things that are looking hopeless, because I really believe this is the time for the church to be shining in its brightest hour. So the people of God really to be stepping into their highest calling and to have just amazing success in this upcoming season. So, all right. So I hope you guys will be encouraged, and and join me if you want to. This is an adventure. And I definitely would want to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments or anything, definitely leave me a note below, and I'd love to hear from you. All right. Thanks, guys. Blessings.